lunch.
I feel like the chuckles during the countdown really adds to the experience. Hello, everybody, and happy. What is today's date? October 30th, the second last day of October. And so the second last day of the first part of our 60-day novel challenge. And as a special treat, at least for a little bit, you have all four of the Dabble marketing team up here. I'm joined by my best Dabble friends in the whole wide world. Don't tell the others that work here. Abby and Hank and Robert. How are we doing today, everybody?
Great. I'm just eating my orange. That
poor Hank had to run from sprints right to here.
I have another to share with everybody.
Thanks for thinking
very
of
considerate
us.
of you, Hank.
I got it before I say hi to folks in the chat. Star is apologizing for weeks ago when she thought you were the name for the Dabble collective.
It's accurate. I go by the Dabble team also. So
yeah, some guy.
Most people have to go through me to get to these guys, anyways. So.
There are a whole bunch of people already chatting in the chat, and so I don't think I can go through and say hello to every single person that's already posted a message, but hello to everyone who is here. If you haven't already, let us know where you're joining us from, because I always love to see where all the dabblers come from and where all the authors that join our events are coming from. But I know I see some new names in there. I see some familiar names in there. So hello, everybody. We have a very exciting show today, and Abby has a hard out in 28 minutes, so we're not going to dilly-dally. We're going to dive right into it, and because we want to see what Abby has for us, because part of what we're going to do today is show off our plot grids. Not show off, show our plot grids to show what the plot grid can do. Hank's getting ahead of the game here.
Different ways to use it, because we all use it very differently.
Very differently. And I love seeing all these different places in the chat as well. That's awesome. Everywhere from the States to the UK to the Czech Republic. I'm up here in Canada. We have people from all over the place. That's awesome. So our first order.
Sorry, it's just got to be crazy late in the Czech Republic, right?
Yeah, it's got to be what, getting close to midnight, maybe.
I don't know. We're glad you're here. I am also a creature of the night and darkness, so I understand.
I used to be, but like bedtime is 10 o'clock now.
10 o'clock? It's like 8:30. What are you talking about?
I was only 7 in the Czech Republic. Okay, well, I'm way off. I don't know my time zones. All right, so let's go, Robert. How is the 60-day novel challenge novel coming?
It's going well. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. This last week portion of it has helped me piece things together in a really powerful way. And so I don't know, I just keep making new discoveries about my story as I go along and think through why things might be happening. And the subplots, just thinking through those through the plot grid has been very helpful for me. But we can get more into that when we go over plot grid process. But I'm feeling good, feeling very motivated.
Excellent. Awesome. Hank, what about you?
As we talked about yesterday in our cohort classes, what I'm going to show for my plot grid today is not the way I normally use a plot grid, but because I'm writing a different kind of book that I've never written before, I decided to tackle everything differently and try to think differently through this process. And I think I've discovered some things that are interesting. We'll just put it that way.
It's funny how when you try something new, you learn new things too. Isn't that's crazy how the world works?
Crazy how that works.
I think we underestimate that sometimes, though.
Yeah,
right. We're creatures of habit. We get stuck in our own ways.
100%. So. And let me just say that when you firmly declare that you are one way,
you will not be.
You may not be. It may just be what you like to associate with. But if you challenge yourself to think differently, who knows? Like we always talk about, people are on that continuum somewhere between plotter and pantser. It's okay to move from one side to the other a little bit. It's okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Nobody's gonna kick you out of the club.
I've said this before, but
Doug.
I've yet to write a novel and not shift where I am on that spectrum in the process of planning and writing that novel. Right. And it's a cool experience, and I learn something new every time that I do it. So Bridget discovered that she's more of a pantser than she originally thought. NJ is not a planner, but the story's forcing her to do it. It's awesome. Oh, and Drackard found that when importing the plot grid from their sheets, they need a generic grid to do that. And we could show off what a generic plot grid is as well once we get to the sharing part of it. And speaking of, why don't we just dive into it? No sense in dilly-dallying, no sense in silly-sallying. Abby, I'll let you go first.
Sounds like you write the same kind of books as me. Listen to all that silly alliteration you got going on there, Doug.
That was the most Canadian thing I've heard today.
Only came here to silly Sally, to be clear.
To be clear.
I am going to show off 2 different ways to use the plot grid. So I'm going to show off my my novel for this month coming up, which has a very, very simple plot grid for it. But I'm also going to show off, I kind of want to start, like, if you're a pantser and the idea of using a plot grid makes you want to throw up in the tiny trash can you keep next to your desk, I'm going to show you a way you could use it that will help you as you move forward in writing and possibly revise. So I'm going to start there because I feel like we should just work our way up to, like, Doug. I mean, Doug's is probably the most elaborate out of all of us. So
I'm scared to see Robert's. I think he might one up me.
Really?
Okay.
Well, let's see what happens. All right. So plot grid for pantsers. Here's what I did, because I wasn't going to sit down and start writing a novel this morning just for demo purposes. So I pulled in Tom Sawyer because I was like, well, what would it look like if you just opened a document and you let it rip and you started writing? And let's say you were Mark Twain and you were writing Tom Sawyer. So what I did was I opened up a plot grid, and let me just go ahead and do this here. I'm going to add a new chapter up at the top and come down to the plot grid. And I just put a whole bunch of cards in. And you'll notice I did not title any of the plot lines. I just put a bunch of blank note cards in because I think that the plot grid, you can also just use it as your notepad as you write. So this is just an example of what you could do. So as you're writing, you may decide that you want to have one card that has the summary. So as you write a beat or something that happens in your novel, you can just put a little bullet point right here. Polly can't find Tom and he's hiding in the pantry eating jam. You know, Aunt Polly tries to catch him in a lie about skipping school and going swimming. The great thing about the plot grid is as you write and you get to a new point, you can just write the next thing that happens here. So that could be useful when you go to revise because you will already have a bulleted list of what happens in every chapter. Another thing that you can do is if you're trying to track characters, right? So in the first chapter of Tom Sawyer, Mark Twain introduces Alfred Temple. So if you introduce a secondary character and you want to remember, I don't know, what he's wearing that day, or some weird thing that you say about him, like he wears shoes on a weekday. What? Tom Sawyer wouldn't do that. You can put these little pieces here so that then once you have a couple of Aunt Polly cards, you can copy and paste them over into a character template if you want, if that's the type of thing that you like to do. You can also have a note card where maybe it's just world building, or notice I labeled mine research that I need to do. So when you're doing something like NaNoWriMo and you don't want to necessarily stop and go read 20 articles about how, steamboats work, right? And you're just trying to get the words down on the page and get the idea, and you just write the giant TK, which is my favorite thing. Just put a TK in to come, keep moving, figure it out later. If that's how you roll, then you can make a card where you just put in, like, did steamboats run on a regular schedule like trains? I don't know. What would kids have worn in the 1940s in a town like St. Petersburg, Missouri? If you want to keep track of the details to come in and add later, stick it in a note card. So that's one way that you could use the plot grid as a glorified notepad or sticky pad as you write. But if you want to see how I use it for reals,
Can I just say this is the exact way that I use the plot grid after my first draft is complete and I'm building out that grid so that I can see where my plot. This is exactly what I do. I create a bunch of blank notes and I go in and I fill them in as I'm reading through the chapter. And then when I'm done, I have a plot grid that I can then get a visual overview of.
Yeah. I mean, you're
Proof
just
yet again,
filling
we were
it.
separated at birth.
We were. We married a Dawn and a Sean. So
Right.
Okay. So
Sorry,
this
Abby,
is
before you jump into that, I'm just gonna try something here. There, so
Yeah.
people can see this a little better. They can still hear us, they just can't see us.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay, good. Okay, then I can lean in real close and not worry about like anybody looking at my nose or something, because I have a hard time reading the screen when it's so little. Okay, so this is my plot grid for the book that I'm going to write for November, Stu the Duck and the Not So Lost and Found. It is a children's chapter book geared at newly independent readers aged 5 to 7. So I have no subplots. I don't have huge character arcs. Like I only have 10 chapters. I'm aiming for 8,000 words. So these are all typical things for this genre. So I have a very, very simple thing. You'll notice under my scenes, I have nothing written. These are just my note cards here. What my outline is 2 pieces. So I tend to use the inside outline strategy, which just every scene has 2 parts to it. It has what happens and why it matters to the story. So those are my 2 columns that I have, what happens and why it matters. So on each card, like you notice, I've got 2-3 sentences most of the time. Some of them are a little bit longer. If as I was thinking about what it was that I wanted to write, I, kind of had a little inspiration. I'd put it down, but they're not all huge. It's basically just a bulleted list without the bullets of I want this to happen, and then this to happen. And then why it matters is just something that I don't want to forget to work into the story. Like that's the little sort of the emotional piece. If you're writing for an older audience, the why it matters is basically what connects back to your emotional arc. But you see, I just have a card for each of those 2 columns. And then I have a bunch of blank cards that I put here because I know for a chapter book, you have to have at least 80 pages to put a title on the spine. So my goal is to eventually, between my font size, my page count, and my illustrations, be able to hit 80 pages. And if I don't, I wanted to have this like nonfiction bonus piece to go into the back where I have duck facts that I can essentially work out and present to the readers. And I thought that would be really fun. And as I write each of these things, I'm going to see if there is something that happens in the plot that I could connect a cool duck fact back to. And I'm just going to fill these out as I write. And so when I'm here, you can see, let me do this. So now I'm in my document. My scene note is blank. Here's my what happens. Here's why it matters. And my duck fact thing, it's empty, but I might put, ducks have 360-degree vision. So as I write, I'll just insert those there. So that, my friends. Oh, I removed myself. There we go.
That's fine.
You were touching it and I was touching it at the same time. That's it. That's all I have. And
Love
it's
that.
super helpful and it's all I need. So.
That's the key. That's that thing that you just said there. It's all I need. That's the important part. The plot grid is as flexible and as powerful as you need it to be. And the purpose of going through all our different ones today is to show you that there's no pinnacle of plot grid performance. Nice alliteration there again.
Man, you're on fire today.
I am on fire. It's a tool that you can use to help yourself. It's not a tool there to burden you with more things to do before you write or while you're writing. Right? So excellent. Fantastic. Thank you, Abby, for sharing those with us. Who wants to go next?
You can go next.
You say you can go next or I can go next? Okay. Okay. Excellent. And I see all these questions coming in. We're going to save them till the end during our Q&A period, but I'm sure we're going to cover the plot grid with a lot of these questions.
Yeah, I did want to highlight a cool feature that Abby kind of hinted at, which is the reason she put in the letters TK is because there's no English word that has a T next to a K. So it's a good way to just make it easily findable if you have something where you're just going to fill in information later. So let's say I have that here in this first chapter. If you haven't ever played with this filter project files, if we filter this down to anything that has TK in it, then it'll only show the chapters that have a TK in it. So kind of a neat feature there, but now we can get back to the plot grid. But there was a question about what TK means, and it's just kind of a little flag for yourself to say, hey, come back and do this. But here's my plot grid. It is not yet complete. So if you're not quite done with yours, then don't feel bad. There's still time in the week. But mine, so I am just using a framework. There's like the 24 chapter novel outline. And I don't follow it on every single step, but I find that it's helpful to kind of plan out what those little story beats are. And it makes me think about my story kind of flow overall and whether or not I want to add these different points that are in the 24 chapters. So the primary work that I did was just here in these scene cards. I either just give them a name when I know my first chapter pretty well. And so I'm not too worried about that. But then as I was kind of figuring out how things are going, then I add just a few little notes to what the scene will be here in this card. And then I just have that labeled here for what portion of the 24 chapter outline this chapter will hold. So as you can see, I'm not just writing 24 chapters, but this is just kind of like, it's kind of like an expanded Save the Cat or like 3-act structure. It just adds a few more steps in there. And so that makes it, like I said, I don't use every piece of it, but it helped me kind of figure out where my story is going. And then I figured out what my subplots are. And this is the work that is not yet done, but these are the kind of the large things in the background, and these are the important things between the primary characters of my story. And so I have little cards that highlight those things. And yeah, so pretty simple. So then when I'm writing, it will just be primarily like looking at what these cards are saying and then writing the chapter through. But this is helpful for me to put in these cards so that way I'm kind of mapping out what happens. Oki is one of my characters who my main character is going to have some conflict with, and so this helps me kind of leave a little note card for myself to just track how their relationship is deteriorating over time, and making sure that that happens. Uh, I don't need something to happen in that relationship in every single chapter, but I don't want there to be any huge gaps uh, where nothing is mentioned, if that makes sense. And then this chapter is where a new character is introduced, and so that's where this plot line begins. Um, so yeah, that's that's kind of all I've got. I didn't add any of the cool colored ribbons because I don't think I have a solid use case for that right now. Maybe I will later as I go through. But my primary use case is just using these scene note cards first, and then using these plot lines just to kind of visually map out what the story is looking like. So
Awesome. Fantastic. Great job. What was the name of the structure that you're using again?
the 24 chapter outline is what it is. You can just Google 24 chapter outline, and then there's plenty of articles on it.
Awesome.
And they all say the same thing. So
Awesome. All right. Hank, do you want to show yours off?
Why not? Let's see.
we're here.
All right. So mine is this is a murder mystery, which I've never written before, but I've read a ton of mysteries, and I've had some mystery subplots in books before. So I tackled it in the sense where I've got my chapters, and then because my protagonist decides to start a true crime podcast while they are sorting through the clues of this mystery, the podcast is a primary driver for kind of the main plot. So at the beginning of each chapter, there's going to be a podcast kind of excerpt that acts as an interlude between chapters. So I've got a column for podcast episodes, and then I've got the suspect focus that for each chapter. It's going to the spotlight is going to be on a suspect or multiple suspects. And then we need to introduce clues throughout. Some of those clues will be actual clues that are lead to the proper suspect, but some of those are red herrings, and so I'm tracking the clues as I introduce them and ones that turn out to be red herrings. And then also there's a subplot of the romance between Stu and Audrey, and so I am tracking especially how the podcast and the intervening search and discovery affects their relationship. So I've got a column there where it's tracking how that's going, and I filled out for every chapter. I've got these
Beautiful.
worked out. Normally, I kind of have this brain dump document of just kind of how I see characters and how the story is going to fall out, and I do a 3 or 4 act structure. This one I used a 4 act structure. And I made some notes about the themes and kind of, what the kind of overall tone and, that stuff. I've got a document with podcast episodes and excerpts that I'm going to use. And then normally what I do is I have kind of this brain dump area, and I'll do a chapter by chapter outline with just bullet points, just story beats, and that's all I need. But so I've got a list of all of those that I've worked out already, and some little notes at the end there. And then I've working out some of the marketing copy, because I think it's handy to think about that stuff from the beginning, because if you think about how you're going to position the book, that helps you to think about how you're going to write the book. So thinking about the end from the beginning is very helpful. And a lot of times So I've kind of got this. I've got some dummy text in here just for this purpose. But so what I did, and I had an epiphany last night when, or yesterday afternoon when Abby was talking during our cohort. I was like, I could take that outline that I already have made and put that into a chapter note so that I can see those bullet points as I'm writing. And that's helpful. I don't have to go back. But then, I also have the cards from each one of my columns in the plot grid. Just as you, roll that out to the side, it shows you all of that. And that's it. That's everything that I'm doing so far. And it's acting kind of funny because I collapsed all of my scenes into just kind of one scene per chapter for this demonstration purpose, because it would be kind of wild to see 4 scenes per chapter and cards everywhere. So just trying to simplify that, but that's what I've got.
Excellent. Are you going to name each chapter the podcast title?
Probably. I have titles for all of them, and I have chapter titles, and so we'll see. But yeah, probably so. That's probably how it's going to work.
Awesome.
But yeah, I haven't fully decided if there will be a podcast interlude for every chapter. There's not going to be for chapter 1 because the podcast hasn't started yet. The podcast really, comes about because there's a dead body. So that doesn't happen to the end of chapter 1. So maybe between 1 and 2. Anyway, that's really shaping up to be a fun part of this is, adding those and kind of a little foreshadowing of what's going to happen, mostly because the fallout from that podcast episode, small town, putting everybody's business on blast, stuff tends to happen from there.
Bernadette's asking if you can show your grid again.
I've got to go to the orthodontist, you guys.
Well, have fun.
Thanks for joining us, Abby,
for
and showing
me,
those grids.
But, okay. Bye, everybody. Good luck.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see. Yeah, here's here's my screen. Let me go back to the grid. Plot grid. And so I've got the chapters and the podcast episodes and the suspect that we're working on for that chapter, the clues I'm introducing, red herrings, and the romance subplot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I didn't like that view.
Yeah, I didn't straight up everybody's nose. Yeah.
All right. Now I'll pop mine up on stage, and I do want to just preface it with similar to last year when we did this challenge, I went above what I would normally do for a plot grid just to show what you can do with it. So hold on, let's do that. And that, so here's mine. Let me get rid of our faces. Okay, so in this one, I have a whole bunch of columns going on. My book is called Circus Freaks. And I wish I could zoom in just a little bit. But what we have in the scenes column, we have every single scene. And I know there's a question in the chat asking, what if there's multiple scenes per chapter? In that case, you'll see this says chapter 1, this says chapter 2, and there are 2 scene cards within it before we get to chapter 3. The way you do that is by going to the chapter itself, and if you add a new scene, then you'll see that another scene card and the column, or the row that goes with it has been inserted. I'm going to get rid of that though. Okay, so for mine, I have in each scene card, I have the different jot notes of what I want going on in that scene. I have a line for a subplot that I have going on that's carrying throughout the whole thing. You'll see that goes all the way down to the bottom here, but does not exist in every single scene because not every subplot exists in every single scene that you have in your story. I have a plot line for the theme or the internal conflict that my character is going through. I have points where I know I want specific moments or pieces of development or beats for supporting characters. So I have those listed as well. And sometimes they have little jot notes in them about what I really want to include. And other times, I think if we go down here, it's like one line. Okay. And this isn't even a note. It's me saying I need to figure something out for this beat or for this scene. Then I have the setting. And the interesting thing about this is that if you have a world building entry or a note entry for different settings, you can link it. And we covered this in this week's lesson and the template. But if you type @ and then start typing the name of the title of whatever chapter, note, character profile, what have you, in this case, it was Nikki's Tricks. That's a place. And you can just click on it or you can hit enter. And the more you type, the more it'll filter. It'll filter everything that's in your project. And then it's always just one click away. The same thing happens with characters. So in this one, I know that I'm going to have a character be introduced, Kamala Mir. So I can hit link. I can start typing her name. And then when I click this, it just jumps right over to her character profile. And that's the reason that we like linking. If it's helpful to you, you don't have to do this. Remember, you make it work for yourself. The reason that we like that, though, is if I go to that scene, then if normally your right nav pane is going to look something like this, but if you're in the notes section, which is pulled from the plot grid, if you expand it out far enough, then you can see all the notes that you have inside of it. And so if I need some information about Kamala, then I can just click on that. Right? It's just less navigating. The less navigating we have to do, for me at least, the better. I have quick notes about things that I want to tie into future books because this is part of a series. Inspired by Hank showing off his plot grid the other day, actually, I have a whole column dedicated to clues and red herrings because I'm writing urban fantasy, and mystery is just like a part of urban fantasy. I don't think you can really have much of urban fantasy without having some clues and some red herrings to investigate along the way, at least the kind of urban fantasy that I'm writing. And then finally, or I have the characters in the scene. And then finally, I have this other column that I've just started putting into all my plot grids, which is notes for revision. I will use that while I'm revising, but also if I am writing a scene and I know I want to come back for something, I can leave a sticky note, I can leave a comment, or I can add a note card in here in the plot grid and then start jotting notes the way that Abby was showing us before. This is a lot of stuff going on here. Oh, and I've also made use of the labels. So in the scene column, I've labeled each one orange if it's a scene. This goes to our discussion on scene and sequel that we've had a little bit recently. And blue if it's a sequel. And then this purple means it's a little bit of both. This is totally optional. You absolutely do not have to do this, but this lets me see from a 1,000-foot glance if I have a pacing issue. So I see here I have two scenes in a row, which means that there's two instances of a character having a goal and actively pursuing it, and there isn't an instance of them reflecting on the action that just happened, which happens in a sequel. So down here, I have two sequels in a row. That kind of balances out. I'm more or less okay with that. If I had like 5 pure action forward driving scenes in a row with no room for reflection or like emotional impact, then I might want to tweak this. Over here, I've used green and red for hints and red herrings interchangeably or respectively. So that's what mine looks like. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to say while we're here.
Julie asked if you move things around, do the links get maintained? The answer is yes. It will still link. So you can move your characters into different spots or move your plot cards or any of that stuff.
Yeah. All right. There's our faces again.
And here's another good one. Get that back up there, Doug, real fast.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Is it possible to print out this kind of overview? So you can't print this page specifically. Like you could take a screenshot, but we do have printing for the plot lines themselves. So if you go to the plot in the nav menu, yeah. So if you click on just like subplot, So on this one, he doesn't have any notes here, but you can print from this page, and it will allow you to print this out. And so, a good question, Emily.
You can also, while I'm here, and since we just saw that, sometimes often when I use the plot grid, I don't actually have anything in it, because this is the subplot for a curse bestowed upon my main character. I just need to know that the curse is placed here, right? I just need to know that the curse lets the clown escape in this scene. I don't need more details than that, so I'm not going to just add more details for the sake of being like, look at all the words I put in the plot grid, right? Again, that's not the point of it.
Curses
Okay.
and clowns. What kind of book are you writing, Doug?
Oh, please. Well, yeah, I'm writing a Doug kind of book. Okay, I know we have a lot of questions coming in about the plot grid, and we are going to answer those. However, there's a couple other things that we just want to touch on before we get to the Q&A part of it, and we'll try and get through this more or less quickly. But it's just the stuff that was in the template, in the lesson, in your homework for this week. And we did the plot grid first so that Abby could show off hers. But the first step this week for your template for your homework was talking about themes. And themes are the message that you want to share in your story. It's the thing you are trying to tell the reader through the actions and the journey that happen within the confines of your book. You don't need to think about a theme going into it. You absolutely can think about a theme going into it. You don't want to be super heavy-handed with your theme, and you definitely don't want to explicitly state it unless you're writing like a middle grade fiction book. Then maybe you might want to state it, because it's just harder for younger readers to read between the lines as much as we can. I say they're probably actually better at it than adults these days. But what I do want to touch on is we did a lot of work talking about characters and their internal conflict throughout this past month. One of the themes of your book is likely going to be the truth that your character discovers to counter their lie, right? Because the whole thing is them going through this journey and all this stuff happening to them while they try and figure things out to eventually come to that realization. So if your character doesn't believe love exists, and then in the end they believe love is real and everyone deserves it, that's a theme, right? The truth that they discovered is the theme. So odds are you already have an idea for a theme for your story, and you just maybe didn't think about it until this week or until last week. Right, but you can also layer in some other themes if you want to. My friends, anything you want to say about themes while I take a sip of water?
I do have a question for the two of you. Do you normally think of theme from the beginning, or are you the kind of writer that looks back at the end of your project and realize that a theme has emerged? Because typically for me, I don't think about theme up front, but a theme emerges. But with this book, I kind of went into it with some theme in mind, not like a heavy-handed, but I did kind of have there were some things that I was trying to steer the story toward, if you want to look at it that way. What about y'all? Do y'all think in those terms?
Robert?
Um, for me, in my experience, um, I usually have a lot of story ideas,
Mhm.
and then for me, the theme is like, at least for this story that I'm going to be working on for the challenge. Once the theme revealed itself to me as I was thinking about the story, then it all like fell into place. Because I think it's easy to think about theme as like, oh, that's the moral of the story. But
Yeah.
I think that comes from kind of that middle grade fiction
Mhm.
world. Whereas a theme there's nothing wrong with middle grade fiction, to be clear. And being a little more heavy handed in a message is totally fine in those contexts and other contexts. But
Abby will be happy to
uh,
hear that.
yeah, Abby's not here to defend middle grade, so we got to stand up for her while she's gone. Um, but for me, like the theme came into this story, and that was good fodder for the conflicts that were going to be set up. And it was because I talked about the theme for my story is kind of attacking this idea from multiple angles of us versus them, of like this kind of group think tribalism um, that can happen, because that's something that I'm like passionate about. But I also I'm not just going to say like, and that's why everybody should be friends, because I understand that there's like deep deep like psychological parts to that behavior, um and I just think that it's a theme can lead to really good conflict. And so I kind of had like a loose idea of the kind of story I wanted, a little action adventure, and I had a bit of the setting put together. But then the theme is like when I hit that, then I felt like I could take all my ideas and run with them. So
Mhm. For me, I often go into a story with like a theme topic, sort of like what you were mentioning there, Robert, like us versus them, or acceptance, or belonging, or belief, or something more like a one word kind of thing that I then want to explore. However, if I have a specific character in mind with a specific big hurt and a specific lie, then that usually pushes me towards a theme that I'm more cognizant of when I'm planning. Um, and I find I didn't used to be that way. I wrote my first book not thinking about theme, and it just kind of emerged as it went along. And I think that's a perfectly okay way to do things. And I love my first book. But I find that the more intentional I am about something, the better my story is when I write it, and the more stuff I have available to me. And I just don't like, I like doing revisions to make words pretty. I don't like doing revisions to fix like substance of the plot or of the story. Right. So the less I have to change of that on the tail end, the happier I am. And that's not how every author is. So as I've written more and more, I think about theme more before I write, because it makes things a little bit more meaningful, even if it's a very subtle way throughout. What about folks in the chat? Let us know what you think about theme, especially if this is your first book and you're just introduced to a concept like this, or the first time since English class back in high school or middle school or grade school. Um,
yeah, I
I
like
found
what
that
Ella
theme.
said here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of I keep saying I love when people have aha moments. I'm never going to stop saying it because I love when people have aha moments during this challenge. But that's it, because you probably already have an idea for a theme that you want to include in your story. It's just kind of there in your subconscious, and you might not realize it until you're at the climax or at the midpoint or what have you. But doing this planning and thinking ahead of time helps reveal those things that you were already thinking about. Okay. All right. And then the last thing that we want to talk about before we get to the Q&A is goal setting and mindset. And I need to cough. Just give me 1 second here. My apologies about that. So we are collectively embarking on a very difficult task. Writing 50,000 words in 1 month is not easy. And don't let anyone tell you that it is. If they say it's easy, they've probably been doing this for like a decade plus, right? Or they have a trust fund and they're able to dedicate full-time hours to writing this book. Hank's holding up his certificate of achievement for succeeding at Nano. And Hank, how long have you been writing for?
I published my first book in 2013.
Excellent. So 12 years. 12 years
12
of experience driving Hank. And Hank, would you say that it is easy for you to still write 50,000 words in a month with your day job, with 8 grandkids, with all the other stuff going on? It's doable.
It is doable, and the more you do it, the more doable it becomes.
Yeah.
And what you quickly realize is that it's uh, it doesn't matter if you have a day job and a family, or if writing is your full-time gig. You still are going to get about an hour and a half to 2 hours of writing per day, and the rest of the if you're a full-time writer, the rest of the day is filled up with writerly things that are not necessarily writing. So you really have the same amount of time as everybody else. But the more you do, it's like any skill, the more you do it, the easier it is to come to the keyboard and get into the writing. Whereas when I first started, there was a lot of walking around and thinking about what I was going to write, is psyching myself up and, kind of untangling knots in my head before you sit down. The more you do it, the easier it gets. We always say that the blank page is the great equalizer. Like everyone sits down to a blank page and it's still work for everybody. But there are things that the more you do it, the easier it is to get into the work. There are carpenters who build houses and they walk to the job site, pick up a hammer and go to work. They don't have to walk around psyching themselves up for it. It's like any skill. The more you do it, the easier it is to get into it.
Absolutely. And so if this is your first time writing a book, don't get discouraged if it's difficult. If this is your 10th time writing a book and life is starting to get in the way, don't think that you're doing something wrong either.
Yeah.
But what I want everyone to do, and I'm actually going to share my screen again while we do this. So I want everyone, if you haven't already, go ahead and set your goal for next month. So let me just rearrange my screen here so I can see everything a little bit better. So in your Dabble project, I'm in my book that I will be writing next month. You're going to go onto the right nav pane here, goals and stats. You're going to click this cog. That's going to pop up the goal setting menu. You're going to want project goal selected. You're going to choose the source of your word count. For me, Circus Freaks. And then I want this book to be 60,000 words, but for the sake of the challenge, 50,000 words. You're going to choose a deadline, November 30th. Okay. Then what you're also going to do is navigate to the days off tab up here. And you're going to choose all the days that you know you are going to have that you aren't going to be able to write. So I've already cleared out all of October. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to take out today, and I'll explain why in a second. But when you go to November, if you know you can't write on Wednesday the 12th, then you click on that. If you know you can't write on the 28th, then you click on that. If you know that you can't write every Friday, you can click on Friday and it will clear every single Friday, right? I'm going to take that off, make sure that it's still off there. So go ahead and make sure you put in your days off if you know that you're going to have some days off. Going to hit save changes. The reason I included today was to show that it automatically calculates a word goal. This is with 32 days left, but if I go in and say, hey, I actually have today off because I'm not writing today, then save changes is going to say 0 because Dabble knows that I'm not writing today. So my goal for today is 0. When it comes around to, why do I have 4 words written? Oh, I was typing something for the sake of a stream. When it comes around to November 1st, if you are writing every single day with a goal of 50,000 words, that goal is going to be 1,667 words per day to reach your goal. The nice thing about Dabble's goal setting, and I'm going to make our faces big again. The nice thing about goal setting is that it is dynamic. So if you write more words in a day than your goal, it's going to adjust what's left. If you write less and you don't have the time that you thought you did, then it's going to adjust as well. So when you log in the next day, it's going to tell you how many you need to write every day going forward. That leads me to like my number 1 tip for this challenge. No, okay, my number 3 tip for this challenge, because I got other tips, of course. Use the momentum and enthusiasm and excitement of the beginning of the challenge to write more than your daily goal if you have the creative bandwidth and the time to do it. Because more than likely, for 99% of people, something's going to come up along the way in November. There's going to be a day you thought you were going to be able to write when you wouldn't be able to write. There's going to be a day when you sit down to write and you have the time booked out, but your mind's just not there. It's distracted by something. The creative juices, they're not flowing, and you get 5 words written or something, which is great. And, I will be proud of you for sitting down and writing 5 words when your brain wants to write 0. But that's going to affect your daily count. So when you're excited, if you have the time and capacity, and when you have this momentum and this motivation, write more this first week, because that will make your daily word count less as the month goes on. It's going to get really tough too to stay motivated, but once you miss a day and you log in and you see what missing 1,600 words does to your daily word count, at first it might not feel like a lot. That'll add,
Yeah,
I
do
don't
that
know.
3 times and see.
Yeah, do that 3 times and you're adding a couple hundred words to your
Like,
daily word count.
ooh.
For some people, that's an extra 15, 20 minutes of writing, right? It adds up, but it also adds up the other way. So if you get 300 extra words on day 1, it's not going to make a big difference when you come in the next day and it's, minus 1 word or something that you're aiming for. But if you consistently get 100 or 200 or 300 more words this first week, that takes a big chunk out of the overall word count and just makes your life easier as we're going forward.
Can I
I have,
offer a piece of practical advice that I
yes,
learned pretty early on in the nano process? And
absolutely.
this really applies for the pantseriest pantsers of all. It even if you're a hardcore planner, when you finish writing your writing session that day, while the juices are still flowing, you're kind of still in that state, but you've kind of written everything you need to write for that day. Go ahead and jot down notes of what you think is going to happen next. The next scene, where your characters are moving to, maybe what their next goal is that you're writing toward. Just leave yourself some notes. I've heard this by several people before, and I don't necessarily believe it, where they say that when you're at the end of when you reach your time limit for the day, just stop, even if you're in the middle of a sentence or scene. I don't really like that because I may not remember where I was the next day when I'm coming in, but leave yourself notes, leave a breadcrumb trail so that when you sit down tomorrow, you can refresh, you can read over what you wrote yesterday, even the last bit of it, check your notes, and then you're right back into it. And it's just a little shorthand, even if you're a pantser and you don't like the plan, just give yourself some notes for tomorrow. It's hugely helpful. Trust me.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is in the homework as well, is to break the goal up into milestones and reward yourself. Now, I'm going to drop a link in the chat to a free workshop we did at the start of this month that is all about mindset and goal setting. So if you haven't watched it, make sure you go and watch it. If you did watch it, go ahead and rewatch it. Make sure you give it that thumbs up too, as you should be doing to this video while I'm mentioning it. But you want to goals only work if you reward yourself. Okay, there's psychology behind this. Your brain doesn't want to do hard things, and so if you make it do something hard, then you have to reward yourself at the end so that your brain goes, oh yeah, that was worth it. And then you do that again and again and again, and suddenly your brain wants to do the hard thing. So you can set daily rewards for yourself. You can set weekly rewards for yourself. You sure as heck better be setting a monthly reward for yourself if you're going to hit that 50,000 word goal. And that, like, make it in accordance with whatever the milestone is, right? I think I said in some video, don't go ahead and buy yourself a board game every time you write 1,600 words in a day, because that's going to be super expensive. Keep your budget in mind, keep the rest of your life in mind, but maybe when you hit your daily word count, you go when you make yourself a fancy coffee. Or I think it was in the chat, someone said, if I hit the weekly word count, then I order in dinner or something. If you hit your 50,000 word goal, do something that is indicative of the effort that you put in. David, who I don't actually think is in the chat with us today, but David last year, after typing his 50,000 words in November on his phone, decided to buy a laptop as his reward. That might not be feasible for everyone, right? Please keep your budget in mind when you're rewarding yourself for your goals, but there's plenty of free or low cost stuff you can do that is meaningful.
Are we talking about old Iron Thumbs himself?
We're talking about old Iron Thumbs.
Okay.
So before we move on to the Q&A, Robert and/or Hank, whoever wants to go first, do you have an idea about what you want to reward yourself with at the end of the month, or specifically for Robert, how you will punish yourself if you do not reach that 50,000 word mark?
Yeah, so all of this you will see in tomorrow's tip video that's going out. I go over all of these things that we've talked about just in a really fast version. But here and in that video, I invite people, if you are feeling spicy, if you're feeling crazy like I am, then you can join me in what I'm calling the Failure is Not an Option Club. So if I do not reach the 50,000 words in November, then I am deleting my entire project. So, and I know that
That's
sounds crazy.
wild. No, that's actually wild.
That makes me so
Because
uncomfortable.
I've done all the homework and I've got all of this stuff written in the plot grid and in my character notes, and then I will get my manuscript down. And I know that sounds crazy, but what I don't need is another unfinished manuscript sitting in my Dabble projects making me feel guilty. What I do need is a finished book. So if you're feeling crazy, then you can also commit to that. And if you want, I'll put a post up in the challenge space in dabbleu.com. And I'll just call it the Failure is Not an Option Club, and it'll be in the 60-day challenge area. And if you want to commit with me, then you can just show up and say, "I'm with you, Robert." You don't have to. You don't have to. But
It's this is also a step up for Robert, because so in Robert's own words, he's more motivated by the negative than the positive. And last year, if he didn't finish his 50,000 words, he was supposed to put a picture of my face as his desktop background, and that wasn't enough to motivate him, apparently. So now we're raising
it's
the
still my
stakes.
desktop background right now, and it just makes me laugh because I have the picture that I used is not the right aspect ratio. So on my laptop screen,
No.
it's like zoomed in a little bit, but then on my like wide screen, it's like zoomed in a bunch, so it's just Doug's eyes just staring at me. So it is motivating. I feel like Doug is watching me, and so that will
I am.
hopefully help.
Look, Halloween's not until tomorrow. Stop trying to scare everybody.
I can show it if people want to see it. Hang on.
Go ahead and throw that up there.
Yeah.
Hank, before I turn to you for your thoughts on what your reward might be, I see a lot of folks in the chat saying that the accomplishment of
Yeah.
writing 1,600 words a day is enough, or reaching your goals is enough. And I'm not one to tell you how your brain works. I'm not qualified to do that, nor do I know you enough to do that. However, I have dug into this research, dug into this research quite a bit. And we might think that sense of satisfaction is motivating enough, but when it comes to something that is difficult and takes a long time to do, the dopamine hit of the confetti showing up, or the dopamine hit of the sense of satisfaction, might be good for the very, very short term. But if you aren't fueling your brain with dopamine that it thinks is equal to the effort being put in, plus the serotonin that we need, which is more of a long-term satisfaction, then you're not going to be able to commit as easily as you could, right? This is all about making it as easy as possible. And so why we talk about doing rewards is so that when you've done a week of writing, you reward yourself with more than just, yeah, I wrote every day this week, right? Like, yeah, that's going to feel good, but we're trying to leverage this brain science to make our brains want to do the next week and the next week and the next week. Right?
This is my ultra wide monitor. This is just Doug's staring at me every day.
Talk about motivation. Oof.
The crowd is roaring for a badge or a sticker or something that includes the Dabble logo if we hit 50,000 words. We'll try and think of something, some kind of certificate or something to come up with.
But we can
Custom
absolutely
wallpaper.
do a certificate.
Like real life wallpaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll send Doug's image over to you guys so you can also make that your wallpaper.
I thought we were talking about rewards, not punishments.
Hank, any idea of how you're going to reward yourself for a job well done?
I don't know. I'm not real big on the reward aspect of it, like I hear everything you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you. Uh, mm, I've figured out over the last couple months that I have like 9 unpublished manuscripts on my hard drive. So, kind of the big motivation for me is publishing all these books that I've written over the last few years, and this is going to add one to it. And I can't have double digits unpublished books, so this is forcing me to you know get off my rear end, edit these books, get them out, and so I'm just enjoying the whole process of everything. And I the last couple of weeks of the year, my wife and I are going to go on vacation, but I mean we're going to do that anyway. But I am looking forward to that and kind of shutting off the writer brain. So I need to get this finished by the middle of December. I'm writing more than 50,000 words, but so yeah, that's what my motivation is. I want to have this finished before we leave and have that off the plate so that when the first of the year rolls around, I can publish another book.
Awesome.
My reward, by the way, isn't just like I'm not just trying to burn my own manuscript. If I do win, I've purchased a video game that I'm excited about playing, but I've told myself I cannot play it until I've reached 50,000 words.
Which one?
So, Ghost of Yote.
Heard great things.
Oh yeah, I played the first one. It's amazing. So excited about that too.
For me, I'm trying to write 6 books in this series before I publish the first one. But I'm thinking my reward is going to be getting the cover art done for the first one, because that'll make it feel a lot more real.
Dig it.
Right? Yeah. All right. We have a ton of questions to get through. Gentlemen, are we okay going beyond the half-hour mark? Like bottom
it's not
of
like
the
I got
hour
anything else going. Sorry, I can't even joke about me not having anything else. I can't even hold a straight face. There's so much going on this month and next, but if we are not here for the people, then why are we here at all, Doug?
Why are we here?
Exactly. Actually, while we're at it, let's get a round of applause or a big ups for our guy Robert Smith here, who is the one editing all the videos that are going up, all the weekly lessons, all the daily shorts. We filmed them, but he has to go through the boring part of actually making them presentable and uploading them and stuff, and then just listen to us pester him about it. So thanks, Robert.
My pleasure. It is very fun, but I'm just some guy, so
I'm just some guy. All right. If you have other questions come on your mind, go ahead. Drop them in the chat. Then if we're not here for the people, why are we here? Some guy. Okay. Good sir Robert, do you want to
we say that in the same way that Charlotte says that about Wilbur, some pig. It's in the same spirit of
he's some guy.
He's some guy. Yeah.
You were asking, were you giving me control over the question
carte blanche
box?
Ooh.
The what?
Carte blanche. Go ahead. Blank check.
Okay.
English.
Wow. Oh my god. Okay. We'll just hit the first one here. Bon asks, I need item A to come into play before action X happens, but after action Y happens, but only after item B was noticed, and so on. How do I track it without just word dumping into OneNote? What's the problem with word dumping into OneNote?
Maybe the notice for you.
Yeah.
So if it makes sense to you, do it.
Yeah. The other thing you could do, if this is like a specific situation, then you can use labeling in the plot grid to label when item A is present, when action X happens, when action Y happens, and when item B gets noticed. You can use different color combinations. You can use the same color and just label them with text. And let me, just so we're clear on how that's done, if we go here, you can click on the 3 dots in the bottom right of any kind of note card or scene card, add ribbon. It'll add the cursor in. So what is it? Item A. And then you can choose your color. And then you can go here. Different color if you want. item B. I didn't capitalize it like the other one. And that'll give you like an overhead look at it. I'm going to remove these though before. I wonder what the heck is item A.
Yeah. And it looks like follow-up question Bon had was related, which is like if Bon's putting so much detail into each plot grid note, should she be separating the details? I think experiment with your process. I think that's a quick answer here. Like if you find that it's too much to manage in one plot grid note, then try splitting it up. If it's working and you're able to write quickly with what you've planned out, then there's no need to change it. So okay. Gypsy movement. How do you use the plot grid in dual POV?
Great question.
I think Doug has done this before. Similar implementation.
So there are a couple ways you can do it. For me, I don't know why this one was turned to green, but for me, I tagged each scene with the color and the name of the perspective character. So Nymir was my protagonist, Aeacus is my antagonist, and you'll note most of them are red, but that allows me when I'm going through the different chapters, we get this cool little color coding on the side so I can see there as well who is the perspective character. Something we didn't point out in any of our plot grid things, if you add a scene, well, Abby pointed out that if you add a scene, it'll populate in your plot grid. But as I went along, I did all this planning, and then I still added scenes afterwards. There's still room for discovery, even if you do a lot of planning ahead of time. And so all of these are just empty because those were scenes that were added after the fact. Right? So you can do that. The other way you can do it is by having like POV, right? And then you can say, this is Nymir, because that was the perspective character here. And you can go that way. Or the other thing you can do is Nymir's story. And if we make a new one here, right? And then you just add in the points where it's relevant. And that helps you keep track of them, and you can just use it in those POV situations. I'm going to go back and look at this afterwards, like when I'm revising the next story, and be like, what the heck is this?
I want you to keep your plot grid up though, because we've had a couple of questions about generic plot grids. So
Okay.
Emily Blue just barely asked, is it possible to do a plot grid horizontally? And then we also had Hilder ask, is it possible to make a separate plot grid to use as a timeline without duplicating the scenes?
I'm going to go back to this one for this, because let me just collapse these here. So if you want to make a generic plot grid, and that is a plot grid that does not have the scene column, then you can go to plot, and then you have this option here to create a generic plot grid. And that will come like create a plot grid again without that scene column. And so you just make it whatever you want. In our Dabble Academy Blueprint for a Book Series workshop, we included this template, which has a generic plot grid filled in with stuff that you might want to use for a book series. So in our leftmost column, we've put the book that it is, and then the series arc, character arcs, subplots and relationships, blah, 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 blah. You can do whatever you want with them, right? That's the beauty of the plot grid. If you want to do a timeline for it, then you can do something like, if you have different eras, the first era, and that's fantasy stuff, the second era. And then I guess you might want to make an initial leftmost column that's like people, maybe. And I saw this was another question that we had, is if you can move columns. In the left nav pane, you can click and drag any plot line like that, and you'll see that it rearranges there. So then if I had, Chad, what did Chad do in the first era? He was a hero. But then in the second era, he was a villain. Right? And you can do whatever you want with it.
Such a Chad.
So I have a character named Chad in my first Nightshade book, and he's fantastic.
So is that a noun or a verb?
It's both.
Keep the screen up. I think
here.
Let's tackle some of these technical Dabble questions, and then we can go into the broader story questions after that. But Yeah, so Drackard asked, where can I store vignettes I've already written before putting them into my story? Where can I write without it creating a card?
Okay. So vignettes like little stories that will go into the story or relate to the story. There's a couple different options. So story notes can be as flexible as you want them to be. Oh, my week 4s. There we go. So it can be as simple as a new folder. Oh, I'm gonna misspell this. Did I get it right?
I think so.
Vignettes, right? And then you go and you add a note and story of Chad, and then you just paste it there. And that's not going to include any kind of scene card. What you can do as well is make another manuscript, add a new book, vignettes, and then you can just paste them in as scenes or chapters, and that will actually create its own plot grid that you can use to get that 1,000-foot view or to experiment with things or plan things out or revise things. The only thing that is going to make a new scene card and make a new line in the plot grid is if you add a new chapter or scene, specifically a scene, to the book tied to that plot grid. Okay. All of these are tied to something in here. And again, if I add a new scene, then it makes a new line here. But if I add a story note, if I add a different book, you can even, if you want, let me get rid of this. You can even go here, copy the plot grid, and then click the 3 dots next to plot and paste the plot grid. And it's going to make an identical copy. There we go. Without the scene, so the scene column associated with it. So you can play around with the plot lines that you've already made. Let me get rid of that real quick. I think that, I mean, it's tough. This is kind of a more vague question, or not vague, but a question I might need more details about to answer any more specifically. But
Let us
hopefully
know
that
if that answers your question, Drackard. Nephilim asks, can you do character timelines somewhere to feed into the timeline of the story plot grid? I would say, yeah, I think you can put that. The plot lines are very flexible, so you can create a plot line for whatever you would like it to be. So if you have your different characters and you want to keep track of what's happening to each of them, especially if it's important, like who was where for like a mystery story, to make sure that there's not any I don't know, people aren't in two places at once, then you can certainly plan that out using a plot line in the plot grid. So
there's also here's some advanced Dabble usage for you. Okay. And again, the beauty of Dabble is its flexibility. Or Bond said, a good thing about Dabble, it's super flexible. Bad thing about Dabble, it's overwhelmingly flexible. Here's something else to add to your toolbox if you want it. So we can go here. We can create a new plot grid. Let's call it Chad's timeline. And then you can make this timeline however you want it to be, right? Whatever setup you want, put different cards in however you want. And then what you can do with a plot grid is take it and you can add it to any of these folders down here. So you might have, oh, mine's taking a little bit to update here. You might have something like character timelines, okay? And then this way you can actually, can actually bank the generic plot grids you use to make timelines underneath the character timelines. And then if, let's say, I don't know, Claire's backstory. Let's say that the history with Chad or something. Then I can link it to, did I call it? Oh, sorry. I want to do this one, character timelines. I made a mistake. You cannot link to a plot grid. That's my apologies. However, you can keep it here in that grouping. So if you want to make a bunch of timelines, it can all be there. That's entirely up to you. My apologies for that. I got ahead of myself.
I was thinking, well, is Doug going to show me something I don't know?
You can technically
But I'm
link to it by copying the URL of the
Right.
plot grid and putting that as a link into your plot notes or your story notes, but I don't think that works in the desktop app. So
Which is the one that I'm using here.
yeah.
Also, Bon just mentioned, yeah, you can zoom in specifically on the browser-based app with Control or Command. And let me see if yeah. So in the desktop app, Control Shift plus or minus will help you zoom in and out. But on the desktop app, you can zoom in and out the way you would on on the web page app, the way you would with any other web page. All right. And you go learn 50 Dabble features. That's Emily. Okay. Do we have any other plot grid questions?
I think we answered this, but I'll just highlight it. Do the rows have to line up with chapters? No, you can have multiple scenes within a chapter in the plot grid that is connected to your manuscript. And then obviously if you're doing just a generic plot grid, then you can organize that in whichever way. So
yeah.
And then you did touch on this briefly, but just because it's a little counterintuitive, moving the columns around, you do have to drag and drop them in the navigation panel in order to move them. So that is something that I think is is in the works for the next release, is to make the navigation of that a little easier. But you can move them. It's just kind of weird because you have to do it in the navigation panel. This is kind of interesting. Do y'all prefer the app or the web app for Dabble? And why do you use the one that you do?
We're torn on this even on the team.
Yeah, I don't use the desktop app. I use the web app.
I almost exclusively use the desktop app just because it's easier. It was faster for me to put on my hotbar at the bottom of my desktop.
I use the web app, but installed as a desktop app. I use the PWA, so I split the difference. I don't like using Dabble in a browser with all my other tabs. I like to just minimize everything, and when it's just running in amongst my other 50 tabs, it just seems a little chaotic to me. So that's why I like to isolate Dabble out to just be an app of its own.
It's also Dabble on your phone,
Of course.
Dabble on your tablet, Dabble's on my Chromebook.
Dabble
Jennifer was asking.
I have Dabble running on a photo frame. Not to
Right.
brag.
Jennifer is asking, what's the difference between the apps? There is none. It's all the same. It's just a matter of how you access it. But it's a progressive web app, PWA, which means that it is almost like the desktop app is like a browser session, just without being in Chrome or
yeah. I will say that the
fuck you're doing these
desktop
days.
app is has a runtime browser that can be a couple of iterations behind. And if you just open it in your like Chrome browser and install the PWA, whenever you update your browser, it updates your Dabble session, so you're always running the current version. You know, whether that matters or not, it just, you know, it's at least as current as the rest of your system.
And all of them have the nice little focus buttons down in the bottom corner.
That's
if
right.
you want to just highlight those, Doug.
Sorry, it's half hidden on my focus mode.
So no matter where you're at, if you're writing in the browser or anywhere else, you can always go into focus mode. You can go into full screen mode. You can toggle your sidebars. And so, yeah.
Can I say that
going.
the reason I became a Dabble customer was because of the focus mode. I had been looking for the perfect um, minimalist writing app, and that was the thing that did it for me.
Yeah, it's super handy and it's just super
Yeah.
clean. We, I mean, we could nerd about nerd out about Dabble all day. But we have some more questions to get to.
We do have more questions. Okay. We've got those ones. Okay, I think you can probably close down the screen share for now.
It'll be back, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. What constitutes as a story beat? I've heard it many times, but not sure exactly what it is.
I think of it just in terms of what happens in the chapter. It's just
Yeah.
a list of I treat it like a chronological list. If you take the kind of the inside outline that this happens, which causes this to happen, which causes this to happen, so that you connect your opening and ending sequences in a laddered. Then if you reduce that to the chapter wise, to me it's what do I need to get me from here to here, and these are the things that I need to hit, and that's how I treat it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I've never been asked to actually define a beat before, and I realize I never have. And I think there's two different ways to look at it. There's like the colloquial way, which is just like, hey, this is a beat that's happening. This is a thing that's happening in the story. It's a moment, it's a scene, it's what have you. And then depending on what structure you're looking at, you'll find beat described a little bit differently. So you can go with the way that Hank described it there. If you're looking at the 3-act structure, then the ordinary world is a story beat. The inciting incident is a story beat. What gets a little complicated is that the inciting incident is a story beat and it's one scene. And then the rising action is a story beat, but it's actually a series of beats because it's a series of scenes. So that it's the things that happen in your story, essentially. And how you specifically define them will vary based on who you're asking. Like Save the Cat has 27. I always get this wrong. Someone corrects me in the chat. Like 27 beats in it, but it's essentially the 3-act structure. So
Okay. Theme question.
oh, I love it.
Doug's getting excited. I can already see. How do you know what symbols and motifs should be in your story?
I'm out on this one.
It's entirely up to you. Because it's on you to assign that meaning to things. So if you're like there are things that you can use that people recognize that are like more tropes, or you don't want to use cliches, but more commonly recognized symbols. So like a bird is often a symbol of freedom, but a dove is often a symbol of peace. However, in your story, the symbols and motifs that you use will vary based on the meaning that you assign to them. So, like running shoes may be a symbol of freedom in your story because somebody used them to escape from imprisonment at some point, right? And then you want them to come up repeatedly to establish that symbolic nature of them. And by repeatedly, I mean it can show up once, but it can also show up multiple times to reinforce that symbolic nature. But it's tough. Like I can't tell you which ones should be in your story. But yeah,
Also
as
say
Beacon
that
says,
this.
Google your theme and symbols.
I'll also say this also can happen in the revision process.
Mhm.
Because when you're just writing, you might not be thinking about symbols and motifs as much. Um, and you might find like, oh, I want to add a little more depth to this chapter. How can I do that? Especially if you're writing in like, you know, fantasy or sci-fi or something a little more outlandish than just like, running shoes equals freedom kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like I know that Brandon Sanderson, if any of you have read his Stormlight Archive books, there's essentially like these kind of like Fey realm entities called Spren that like they'll gather around people based on the emotions that they have. And Brandon Sanderson said he doesn't worry about that at all in the first draft. He works on that in revision when he's like going through what little fairies would show up, or the anticipation spren or the anticipation fairies, when might they show up at this moment. Like he's not thinking about that when he's writing the first draft. So I would especially say that for this challenge, don't get too tied in knots about trying to hit that symbolism. If it comes out naturally, awesome. But if you feel like, oh, my book is so flat because it has no symbolism, that's okay. You're writing at a really fast pace for
Yeah. That's
starting Saturday.
That's a second draft problem. Possibly a third draft problem.
Okay. Bridget, could a theme just be the importance of self-worth?
That's a theme topic. A theme is going to be a statement that you're making about that topic. So you're going to say something more along the lines like, I am worthy of no, I'm worthy of this, I'm worthy of love, I'm worthy of happiness. I need my self-worth isn't defined by the people around me or what I can put out into the world. So the importance of self-worth is what you're going to be talking about, but what is it that you're, especially when we're talking about the internal conflict, what is it that your character is going to realize as the truth that counters their lie? That will give you a more specific theme than just the importance of self-worth.
Awesome. Technical Dabble question. If you exclude a day and end up writing on that day, do the words get counted? Yes, absolutely. And your total and goal will be recalculated if you have a project goal. You can also simplify and just set a daily goal, which, we could demo that, but it's in the same goals settings. And the daily goal doesn't even pay attention to days off. But yeah.
And
I
I
do.
would recommend almost everyone takes Thanksgiving Day off, for obvious reasons. But I have found
If you're in the States.
if you're in the States, but I mean, never mind.
I'll be running sprints that day, for the record.
Sending
and
in the Canadian.
yeah. What I have found is that after a day of lots of people being around and I'm just wildly overstimulated, sitting down with my computer and writing out a scene doesn't even have to be the full, word count for the day, but especially on a day that I've taken off, if I just need to switch gears in my brain, a nice short writing session is a perfect way to do that. And those are just bonus words that you get. So take the day off, but if you're like me and you actually enjoy writing and it does something good for you, slip into the office and or the bedroom and write some words. Nobody's gonna get mad at you.
And that lends to the bigger conversation too of this challenge is supposed to be tough. It's supposed to be something that you try hard for. But if you're feeling absolutely burnt out, take the day off.
Yeah.
Right. Just don't write if you're feeling like it's the absolute worst thing in the world. If it's feeling like it's a difficult thing to do, write. Right. That's embrace the beauty of friction and what doing something difficult can do for you. But if you're, if you know that this is going to be a net negative for you to write, then don't do that. But that does lead me to one thing that we haven't talked a lot about this year, but was very popular last year, is the concept of no 0 days, where we aim for no days where we write 0 words. And that's not the same as aiming for 1,667 words every day in November. It means writing at least 1 word every day forever, because that that gives you this sense of forward progress. You are always moving towards your goal, and you always do something to maintain the habit of writing. So if my fellow Dabble gents up here don't mind, I'm just going to quickly hop in here because, Robert, you mentioned daily goals. So if we go into here in our goal settings, we can go to the daily goal. And this is where you set a minimum number of words per day. It counts the same words as your project goal, but it is a different goal to set. One is not 0. And then you can send email reminders if you miss a day. Boom. Now you have 1. Now you'll note this says 557. That's because I was doing some work on my outline in the scene notes. So this one tracks everything in your project, whereas the project goal only counts the project that you associate it with. Okay. But that's what we mean by no 0 days as well. So if you're feeling like you don't want to write one day, you can still whip out your phone. You can type you can type if, you can, type 5 words if you want, or you can jot down a note about what you want to write tomorrow. It's all no 0 days. And as NJ is saying, no 0 days. No 0 days. All right. We carry on.
Yes. Okay. Okay. How do we make sure that we have the correct project connected to the challenge?
You're going to click on your profile, the profile button up here. You're going to see 60-day novel challenge. You can go if you've done all the steps so far, which hopefully you have at this point, especially if you're trialing Dabble. If you want the extended trial, you have to have this set up. You join the challenge space at dabbleu.com, and then you hook up the book, which gets this check mark. If you want to make sure, click go to challenge settings. It's going to default to none here. You can just go to the project, which is that one, and you don't actually have to choose the individual book. You just choose the project that will contain it. And then that'll bring you to the goal setting here, which we've already set up. So boom, all good to go.
Boom.
Can you reset the goal? Yes, absolutely. You can choose a new deadline. You can switch it around, all that stuff.
You can also exclude. So the number of previous words already written that you want excluded from your total. It says often this will be left at 0, but if your goal is 50,000 words for November and you already have 30,000 words in your project, then you just type in however many words, 30,000 there, and it'll exclude them. All right.
Okay. How does Dabble know our official word count at the end of November? If you are talking about for the purposes of like winning the challenge, then once you've connected your project to the 60-day challenge, like we just explained, then it'll give you a very nice celebratory screen that says you did it. And then outside of that, it will be there will be a coupon available to the winners, and that we don't like. It's just honor system. So, yeah, we trust you guys to actually write the book, and if you want to be dishonest, then that is your own choice. But we are not going to go in and like make sure that everyone actually completed the challenge on the back end. The only time that that somebody on the Dabble team would ever access a user's project is if you've reached out to support and you need help fixing something in your project. Otherwise, it's just yeah, we don't tap into any of that. So a good question. I hope that answers it.
Well, before we move on to the next one, this one from Elsie just came in. If you link a project to the challenge, can you change it to a different project? And it's the same process as what I just showed. So you just go through the same thing again, challenge settings, and then you choose the one that you want. So if, for example, I didn't want to use this project here, I can choose like the Tragedy of Nymir was my one from last time. And then it would bring me over to it, set my goal for it. Well, that's not what I want. But I can pull this off the screen while I'm fixing it.
Awesome. Uh, Dracker, did we answer your questions about the vignettes? Looks like we have it popped up again. So if we haven't answered on where you can put those, then let us know. Uh, okay, Berlin. Can my theme be embodied by a character like a mythical creature? Because that's kind of how my theme worked out.
Yes. So, assuming um, Berlin means by like the actions or the journey of the character. Like the character itself can be symbolic of a theme. It can be a symbol of the theme. Like a Pegasus could be a symbol of freedom. I don't know, I keep going back to that. And then your theme can be about freedom. Like freedom can be your topic. But if there's a character, like I said before, the internal journey of your protagonist, the internal conflict, is going to be tied to a theme because they discover something and find a new truth at the end of it, and that will be a message that you're sharing, and thus that's a theme. But ideally in a longer work, 50,000 words is tough to put multiple themes into. It's not impossible, definitely doable. But in a longer work, you're going to have other characters embodying different themes as well as they go through their own journeys or as they have their own stories and actions and whatnot.
Rachel, if you're trying to get scenes right for a story you have already started writing, where's the best place to start? Get scenes right. It's kind of a vague question.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the plotting process of making sure that your scenes follow a through line, or just about the actual writing of prose? Maybe you can clarify there, because we can jump into answer some of those, but um,
Where's the best place to
yeah.
start? Yeah, maybe a little bit more clarification, Rachel.
Yeah.
And then we can come back to this one.
Uh, Jeff Jen, if I paste text from another document into my Dabble project, will that still count towards my words? Yes, it will.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is especially important if you're joining us in our word sprints in wordsprint.org. Then when you paste them in, it will still count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
But this circles back to the. Sorry, go ahead, Hank.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say it circles back to what Robert was saying about us not validating things. So you technically could go ahead and paste 50,000 words worth of stuff to can make yourself successful. And then that's just on you, right? This challenge is for you to write a book, to write 50,000 words. So if you're going to fake it, sure.
Well,
You're only
but
Rob
hurting
yourself of a book. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
during my challenge, I'll write on my free write typewriter that you can see there beside Mr. Grinch. Some days, if I just want a different view, I'll take my typewriter out on the patio. I'll write some. I'll hit the send button. It pops into my email, and then I copy and paste that into my Dabble project. So, you know,
I think for Rachel's question, because Rachel responded yes, and that's all I see. So also vague. But I will just tell you, I think the first thing I asked is that for like laying out your scenes in a plot. Um, we have
Rachel
lots of
just said something.
articles on plot in our W articles, and so I'll maybe send Doug off to go get a link for that and put it in the chat. But you can find lots of articles on plot. For me, I just looked at the story beats for the 24 chapter novel outline. You can just Google that and you can find those. There's also Save the Cat. There's other things. So if you're worried about just like, how do I write a cohesive story? Usually, if you're trying to write 50,000 words in a very short amount of time, you don't want to reinvent the wheel or try to do a story structure that is outside of kind of the norms, if that makes sense. Um, and so I would recommend looking up some of those story structures that are out there. Find one that you vibe with, and then kind of just use it as a loose guide. Like I said when demonstrating my plot grid, that I have the 24 chapter novel outline story beats in my plot grid, but I don't have just one chapter for every story beat. And I skipped a couple of the story beats because they didn't fit, but it kind of helped me feel like I was on track and helped me think through how I want my plot to come together. So
And Rachel, if you already have some scenes written in your book, then you just paste them into Dabble, like paste them in their own individual scenes. That's going to populate the plot grid with the scenes themselves. Like in the left plot line column, it'll give them their own rows. And then you can go ahead and add your plot lines however you see fit. And then you just need to add cards to intersect with those. So just adding in the scenes that you already have will automatically fill up the plot grid, and then you can add more scenes and chapters beyond those that you've already written.
yeah, Rob, we did talk about this. It is more difficult to make links in the desktop Dabble app, just because you don't have the URL bar to copy the links of different parts of your project. Because every portion of your project, every new character, every new note, they all have a unique URL, and so you can easily link to those from other places or in your notes and projects.
And
But the
So-
way that you
if you
can
use
do
the
it,
if you use the desktop app, you can still open Dabble in a browser long enough to make the links that you want, and then go back to using the desktop app. You can use both.
Mhm.
yes. And then there's also, as Doug is showing here, you can type at in specific places. So specifically in the plot grid on the note cards and um, in the story notes, you can type at, and then that will bring up a list of the all the different things in your story. So then you can link to different chapters, you can link to different notes, link to those types of things. So that's a quick way to be able to link. You just have to know what the name is of that note or the character that you are linking. So I hope that answers your question. Uh, If I decide to split up my manuscript into separate books later, how do I do that? Great question.
Okay. Let me refresh myself because I haven't done this before.
All good. I can demonstrate.
Okay.
Let me-
Because I know how to split a scene and merge a
Still
scene.
sharing my entire screen because I showed off Doug's face. So let me change the settings here real fast. Okay. So in Dabble specifically, you can add a new book to your manuscript. And then as far as moving over a portion of your book, what I would probably do is um, you can create a part in your book as well.
Mhm.
And then you can drag chapters into that part. So you can drag those. And then you can drag and drop different portions from one book to another. So it's a little bit of a manual process if you're splitting it partway through. Um, but that is a way that you could do it. So if you have a brand new book, you can put the chapters into a part and then drag the whole part over or what have you. So if you think you might, well, I would suggest that if you think you might split the book, just create a part 2 or something in your manuscript so that way you can just grab this whole portion and drag it into a different book if you decide to split it later.
You can also copy and paste the whole book and delete.
Yeah, so you can export your book and then you can delete the portions uh, that aren't part of the first book or whatever, and then you can tweak it in
Sorry,
another platform and
I
copy
meant
and paste it.
the copybook option fourth from the bottom of that
Oh yeah,
menu.
you can also copy the whole book.
Yeah.
So a couple different ways to do that. But I would say if you think that might happen, the best thing to do would probably be to just insert a part, and then it'll be easier to split later if you need to. Okay. And we are getting through these. Uh, Also kind of similar, 4 characters and flashbacks to ages 6, 12, 16, and 18. I don't know what chapter they're going in. Where can I keep them that they won't create a grid entry or chapter scene? Yeah, again, I think that's a good spot for story notes. You can even write them in a scene. Here, I'll put this back up. So if I have a scene here, you can drag your scenes. It's going to take a while to get out of my many chapters, but you can drag your scenes all the way to um, whatever scene you have. You can drag it into a story notes folder. So the story notes folders themselves can contain plot grids and story notes and whatever else you want. So that will give you flexibility in terms of where you store your things.
Rob's asking more about linking with the URL. Rob, if you want to link within a Dabble project, use the @ symbol. If using the URL to link it is giving you a hard time, just use the @ symbol.
Yeah. Okay. I think we tackled this, but we'll just cover it one more time. In the project settings for goals, we are just tracking the book, not the manuscript or the whole project. That is correct.
Yeah.
But if you set a daily goal, then the daily goal tracks the whole project. And we have Berlin. Another question. Does my theme have to tie to my character's internal conflict, or can it be separate?
It does not have to, but the internal conflict of your character is likely going to generate a theme on its own, just by the nature of the character having something wrong and then pursuing something that counters what they believe to be true. That's going to create a statement that you are telling through their actions and through the entire story. So your theme doesn't have to tie to a character's internal conflict, but your character's internal conflict, if it's resolved, will likely create a theme. But you can show theme through other stuff, and that's part of the exercises in this week's template. Rob's having trouble with the @ symbol. Sorry, just Rob, if you are getting a blank screen, then you might need to email support@dabblewriter.com, because they might need to take a look at what's actually going on your screen. We can't really diagnose it through chat.
Okay. I think that is all the questions, unless
We
we
did
missed
it.
some recently. But I think we're caught up.
We did it. We did it.
Excellent. Okay. So, wow, what a show then. So many great questions, some technical ones, some storycraft ones. We got to show off our different plot grids. Some stuff to be aware of if you didn't see it today in the community or here on our channel. I will be hosting, and I think Abby's going to be joining me on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be doing 3 sprints to kick off the writing portion of the challenge. November 1st is Saturday. It's just going to be a great time, right? And we're going to try and use that momentum I was talking about to get as many words written as we can. Following that, we have our normal weekly lessons going up every Monday still. So on Monday, you'll be getting one about the first act. And in the template, you'll find some stuff about the first act that you should be thinking about. Now, the exercises and the homework are a lot less, if existent at all, going forward, because our homework is to write. The stuff that you're going to be doing is writing 50,000 words, and we don't want to give you too much more stuff to do other than that. So it's mostly just knowledge coming at you to help you write during the next 4 weeks. To do that, we're also doing our daily writing sprints Monday through Friday. Those are going to be at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And we will be doing a couple big sessions of writing throughout the month. But have we landed on dates for those? For the marathon and the half marathon?
I think we did, but I don't know what they are.
Yes, I'm struggling to remember, and my Chrome is taking its sweet time, so I'm just going to keep talking here and
Just
pretending like this.
stall. They're
Yeah,
not. They
just
haven't noticed yet. They aren't paying
uh,
attention.
All right, on Wednesday, the 12th of November, we're going to be doing a half marathon. That's going to be, what are we going to do? Like 3 hours, 3.5 hours of writing, maybe 4. Let's see how spicy we get. But that's going to be at 12:30. We're going to have a lot of writing then. And then on the 26th of November, that is the last Wednesday of November, we are bringing back the full day marathon where we're going to be doing 25-minute sprints with a 5-minute break. The Dabble crew will be rotating all throughout the day. You're welcome to join as many of those as you want. Stick around for as long as you want. That'll be part of our last push to get all those words written, to give you that space and accountability to write them. Oh, it's going to be a fantastic time.
Robert, do you
any-
remember what our total word count was for that marathon? Because you and I finished the day out. Doug had gone. It was a crazy number at the end of the day. I can't remember what it was, but
I don't remember. I think it was like we had lots of people join. We had lots of people all throughout the day. I think we got somewhere close to like in total 500,000 or something. I just remember it was some crazy number
yeah, it was
that we reached as a group.
yeah, it was crazy. Good times.
Bridge is asking about links to the marathons in W. They will be up next week, probably.
Yeah.
Those, we have all the other sprints up. We might even have some placeholder sprints on the day of those already up, but we will change them to make sure they're reflective of the marathons themselves. Yeah. And it's just going to be a fantastic time. If you have any other questions, make sure to drop them in our community over at w.com. If you haven't already, grab that extended trial of Dabble to try it for all of November. If you join the challenge and see why it's the best novel writing platform out there, like it's a no-brainer for me, but you're going to see it over the next month as well. Any other questions? Like I said, drop them in the community. Leave a comment down below here if you've made it through this now 2-hour stream. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button for us for all these great questions and for just all the fun that we're having with this challenge. Yeah, the like spike, as Abby calls it. Otherwise, hopefully I see you on Saturday for sprints. If not, we will see you next week, because in less than 48 hours, we are starting to write 50,000 words. Bye, everyone.